But first, a tax expert, Maya Forstater, tweeted in 2019 about a proposed change to the law with no idea it would lead to losing her job. The government at the time was looking at amending what's called the Gender Recognition Act. The change would have made it easier for anyone to declare themselves the opposite sex and to be treated as such for most legal and practical purposes, which is so-called self-identification or self-ID. Maya Forstater was worried that this would undermine women's existing legal rights to single-sex spaces such as changing rooms and hospital wards. Those rights are designed to protect women's privacy and safety. She debated the subject on Twitter, saying essentially that she didn't believe people can change their biological sex. She was described as transphobic, and she then lost her contract with her employer, the think tank, the Centre for Global Development. So initially, when this went before a tribunal, the employment judge ruled her views were, I quote, not worthy of respect in a democratic society. That was then overturned, and in a landmark judgment last year, so-called gender-critical views, such as hers, were confirmed as protected beliefs under the Equality Act 2010. Ms. Forstater had her employment tribunal heard. She won her case for unfair discrimination. Has a similar thing happened to you, or are you surprised these beliefs are protected? Do email us with your phone number attached so we can get back to you. Text us 88291. The email is vine@bbc.co.uk. You can also WhatsApp us on the long number 08000 288 291. So welcome to Maya Forstater, who's now director of the think tank Sex Matters.
Hello, Jeremy.
So I'm guessing when this started, you didn't expect to be in a full-on row with this much attention.
No, not at all. The government was consulting on the Gender Recognition Act, and I thought and I think that my views are completely ordinary. I think that, if you're born male, you will grow up to be a man. If you're born female, you'll grow up to be a woman. And often that doesn't matter. There are lots of jobs that men and women can do, but there are some situations where it matters, like in sport, in prisons, in single-sex spaces, and in talking about children. And so I tweeted my beliefs, and I had no idea what would kick off after that.
It went crazy, but it seemed to make your employer very uncomfortable as well.
Yes. My employer, their headquarters are in the US, and it was colleagues who I didn't know, people that I didn't know in the US who complained and said that what I was saying was transphobic. And initially, my colleagues and managers in the UK said, well, we think what she's saying is fine. It might be controversial. We might agree or disagree, but she should be allowed to speak. And then gradually they got frightened. And this thing happens where if somebody says you're transphobic, or they say, can you not see the transphobia? They either have to say, no, I don't see the transphobia, and then the finger gets pointed at them, or they turn around and say, yes, you're right, this is transphobic, she must go, and that's what they did.
And do you regard yourself as transphobic?
No, not at all. I think everyone has human rights and they should be protected, but sex is real, and in some situations, sex matters.
So forgive me for sort of asking really basic questions here, but it's your view that if someone is born in a male body, whatever happens to that body, even if they have a sex change, so-called, they remain male?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's just absolutely not up for negotiation?
Well, I mean, it's not possible for someone to change their sex. So sex means whether you have the type of body that is able to become pregnant, become a mother, whether you do or you don't, or whether you have the type of body that's able to become a father. And it's not possible to change between those two categories. And so some people have changed sex legally. Some women have changed sex legally so that on their birth certificate it says they're a man, but they can still go ahead and get pregnant and have a baby. They're still mothers. Their sex hasn't changed. And most people who go through what's called gender reassignment, whether they change their sex legally or not, don't have surgery, particularly they don't have genital surgery, because that's a very invasive, that's a huge step to take. So mainly people change their name, they change their pronouns, they might change their clothing, their hair, their mannerisms, and they should be free to do that, but it doesn't change their sex. And
are you differentiating between sex and gender, or are they the same?
I think gender means so many different things that it's not helpful to talk about.
Right.
People have a sex and then people can live their life as they choose.
So sex is a physical fact, but can somebody decide to be gendered differently on a Tuesday?
People can decide to do whatever they like. The question is, what does that mean for society? What does that mean for other people and rules and obligations on other people? So one of the things that caused trouble at my work was I tweeted about a man who works at Credit Suisse, the investment bank, and who goes to work some days a week dressed in women's clothing and has a alternative identity. He's Philip most of the week, and some days he's Pips. And the FT had put him on a list of women in business, women leaders in business, and I thought that was atrocious. So I tweeted about that, and that started a whole conversation about what is a man, what is a woman, and when you're doing something that is there to protect and promote women, why would you include a man who likes wearing a dress?
So
which
the person
is nothing against that person and their lifestyle.
It's quite well known because so their title is MX, not Mr. or Ms. Pips Bunce, Head of Global Markets Technology Strategic Programs at Credit Suisse. So you would regard that person as male no matter what they do on every other day of the week?
Yes, of course. I mean,
but why say that? Because doesn't that just hurt the person's feelings?
We have to be able to speak the truth. Whatever clothes I wear, whatever I do, whatever I cut my hair, it's not going to change my sex. I'm always going to be a woman, and women need protection. Women need women's sports. They need women's spaces. They need refuges from domestic violence. We have separate prisons. So we need to be able to speak clearly about what is a man and what is a woman. And clearly, Philip Bunce is not in any way a woman. He doesn't claim to be a woman. He just wants to be able to wear the clothing he wants to wear.
I get, but in a business setting, you wouldn't be able to gender mix Bunce as he without causing grave offence and.
Well, I don't know what he's wearing today.
No, okay, let me take a different example. I've got a friend who's trans. I'm not going to obviously say who that is. This person was born in a male body. They always knew they were female from the word go, right? They then had the full gender reassignment, so their body was changed surgically. And she's not a campaigner. She's not, militant or even assertive about it. She doesn't even want to mention it. And nobody who sees her would think she started life in a male body. Can we not give her a pass and say she's a woman?
Socially, you can call your friend whatever you like. But if your friend wanted to compete in the Olympics, they're still a man. If your friend did a crime and had to go to prison, they're still a man.
So you wouldn't allow them to go into a women's jail?
I wouldn't, no, because I think, most of the women who are in women's prisons are there for non-violent crimes. Many of them are there, have had terrible lives and have been victims of violence. And we can't determine, I'm sure your friend is very nice, but there's a reason why there are no men in women's prisons, and it's because we can't determine which are the nice ones.
Okay. The areas that seem to cause all the problems are prisons, sport, changing rooms, schools. Those four.
Yes.
Anything else?
There are lots of areas where sex matters. The census, for example. Any time that you collect information about people and you want to know what their sex is, you need to know that accurately. And any time that you separate people into male and female, whether it's in a hospital ward, a changing room, toilets, prisons, you're doing that for a reason, and you should be able to continue to do that. Schools are the place where this is becoming a really fast-growing issue.
Tell us why.
There's been a rapid growth in children feeling like they're born in the wrong body, particularly girls, which was never the pattern before. And so you have a lot of teenagers, both boys and girls, starting to identify either as transgender or non-binary, this idea that you're neither a man or a woman.
Isn't that okay if that's what floats their boat?
Well, one, this hasn't happened before. And two, it's not possible to change sex. And underlying, we don't know what's going on with these children underlying this feeling. Many of them are autistic. Often they are same-sex attracted, so children who would grow up to be gay or lesbian, who feel different and who may be subject to homophobic bullying at school, and they're being told, well, if you're a feminine boy or a masculine girl, maybe you're really the opposite sex.
So, because logically, by extension, that would mean we wouldn't have the category of homosexual anymore if that happens. Is that what you think is happening?
So my lesbian friends tell me that if you go on a lesbian dating site, 40% of the profiles on there are men who identify as women,
but
or
who
just want
look
to
like men, or who've transitioned, or
some of them look just like you, Jeremy.
Right. On a lesbian dating site.
On a lesbian dating site. And if the lesbians say, no, I'm a lesbian, I'm only attracted to women, they're kicked off the site for being transphobic.
So your friends can't go on the site and say, I want to partner up with somebody who was born with and retains a female body. That would be transphobic.
That's considered transphobic, and they're organisations like Stonewall that used to stand for gay rights are calling those women and those lesbians bigots and transphobes.
But
it's heartbreaking.
Well, yeah, if it's done cynically by those men. I mean, if you've got a 6'5" bloke with a beard who identifies as a lesbian for surreptitious or cynical reasons, that would be terrible. But why don't we take it on trust? He's unlikely to do it, isn't he, for sport? Maybe that's how he feels. She feels.
There's a difference between how people feel and material reality, and other people are allowed to state their boundaries in terms of material reality.
I understand that completely. I have to ask the question. So the thing that I can see where the really blurred area is, if we accept your definition of sex, which is that your body is male or female, chromosomes don't change, whatever you have done surgically, we are still left with this idea that gender identity can be adrift, can't it? You can change it. You can decide somebody said there's 99 different genders, or maybe more. Why shoot that down?
Absolutely. So my case, what I won was a case of belief discrimination. So you can believe whatever you like along a wide range of things. And normally, we go to work with people who believe different things from us, who have different lifestyles from us, who make different choices, and we all get along. It's not saying that people can't express themselves in any way that they want. But it's just saying that where sex matters, whether that's in statistics or sport or schools, healthcare, prisons, it is sex that matters. And we need to be able to talk about that without losing our jobs. And professionals need to be able to talk about that where they're protecting children or vulnerable people without fearing for their jobs. Journalists need to be able to talk about it. If all of that can be made secure and safe, then there's still a lot of freedom in the world for people to dress how they want, call themselves what they want, and live as they choose.
There's an issue coming up in Scotland, isn't there, which I know you're going to actually travel up there to do some protesting. What's going on?
So the Scottish government is reforming the Gender Recognition Act in Scotland, and they want to change it so that children as young as 16 can change their legal sex, and there would be no need for any kind of medical diagnosis. So somebody just says, I'd like to change my sex, signs a form, and they could change their sex. And there are all kinds of problems about that, both for all of these things like women's spaces and women's services, but also for what does that mean between England and Wales and Scotland if someone can change their sex on one basis in Scotland and not the same in England, and then they end up in prisons or schools in England saying, I'm the opposite sex. And that it's unprecedented, and the governments on either side of the border haven't really thought this through.
OK. I'm tempted to say stay with us because this is so fascinating, but I'll see how you're fixed for time in a moment. But I've got to read out a statement from the Centre for Global Development, which has been mentioned, and obviously they're the ones who terminated your contract in the row that started all this. Amanda Glassman is the Chief Executive Officer and says, "We always aim to uphold our values and maintain a workplace that's welcoming, safe and inclusive to all, including trans people. While we were disappointed with some elements of the judgment," which is obviously saying that Maya was unfairly dismissed, "it does not affect our core commitment to that objective. Our mission is to reduce global poverty and inequality through economic research. We're pleased to once again be able to focus exclusively on that." Thank you, Maya Forstater, BBC Radio 2. It's Jeremy Vine here. We were talking to Maya Forstater, and Anna in Ramsgate is on the line. Anna, what would you like to say?
Well, unfortunately for me, I am post-op trans woman.
Okay.
I had my surgery back in February 2018. People with her attitudes stop people like me living a normal life. I've been discriminated against for many years.
And you've now transitioned surgically, so you would look like a woman, you behave like a woman, you think like a woman. You, as far as you're concerned, you are 100% a woman now.
Very much so.
Right.
I got married last year to a beautiful woman, so I am a lesbian. And there are a lot of people who would still like to see me, or not see me, shall I say.
Right. I'm just trying to work out where this issue comes up for you, because I'm guessing that unless you become a sports person or go to prison or whatever, it's quite possible that none of this is an issue for you. Maya can have her views, you can have yours, and you don't. I
totally agree.
Yeah. So why is this a problem, this campaigning by the other side?
Because they make it difficult for trans women or trans men to live a normal life, because it creates bitterness, animosity. I consider her to be transphobic because of her views.
Did you always know, when you were living as a man or in a man's body, did you always know you were a lesbian?
That side of it, I didn't know.
Right.
But I knew when I was 12, 13 years old at an all-boys school in the early 70s.
Which is quite a way ago. Thank you, Anna, very much for calling. Thank you. Anna in Ramsgate. Maya's here listening, so that's the problem, isn't it? Anna, she feels that her life is hampered by people expressing views saying, "You're not a woman."
But practically, everyone has rights, and as you said, it's only where you need to have rules and clarity about who's allowed to use a space, who's allowed to play in a sport or be in a particular service. Those need to be able to be clear, and somebody can transition with surgery, without surgery, in any way that they choose. It's impossible to draw a line and say, Anna is now a woman and I must accept them as a woman. What you have to do as a society is to say there are people like Anna, and we need to make sure that they can get on a plane, get on a train, go to work, go to the gym, do all of those things that everybody does, but that where women need single-sex spaces, those are separate.
Thank you very much indeed. Maya Forstater, director of the think tank Sex Matters. BBC Radio 2 will take some more calls after this.
When there's so much going on, give yourself a break. Go on. I'm Angela Griffin, and this is your weekly wind-down.
Radio 2 unwinds.
So, feet up while I spin some Fleetwood Mac. Take some time for yourself in the company of the Lighthouse family. Or just kick back with Jessie Ware. I am here to give you dreamy, blissful beats. a soothing soundtrack as we draw the curtains on another week.
Radio 2 unwinds.
Sunday nights from 10, or listen now on BBC Sounds.
She's got the most amazing voice, hasn't she there? Alan Hennis says males cannot be female. No incantation, no declaration can make them what they are not. Women like Maya Forstater are standing up for the rights of girls and women because they can't be protected from men with bad intentions. Sarah emails, I agree with the claim that you're female only if you're born female. I am very non-judgmental with many things like sexuality, etc. I think if it makes you happy, that's all that matters. But I'm a woman who's had issues with periods and miscarriages, and I find it wrong that a male is able to say they're female just because they feel like it. It's very divisive, this issue, I know. Let's talk to Lillian in Surrey. So your daughter is transgender, Lillian, correct?
Yes, that's right. She's 18 and she considers herself absolutely 100% female. She's been on hormone, testosterone blockers and estrogen for a year and a half, couple of years now. She's grown breasts, she's got hips, she's female. You look at her and she is a female. Her passport says female. Her NHS records have been reassigned so that she is now female with the NHS. Mm-hmm. And I find Maya's comments completely transphobic. She's not making the differentiation between a transvestite and a transgender person. She's saying that somebody that chooses to dress as a female part of the week, she is saying that they want to be female. That is not the case. Somebody that wants to be female makes that decision not without going through a whole lot of serious thought and process. And I can safely say my daughter is so much happier in the skin that she is in now because she's found her true identity.
OK, stay there. We've got Dawn Susan in the Western Isles of Scotland. You, I'm guessing, I hope, politely disagree with that, Dawn, do you?
I absolutely disagree with that, Jeremy, because your child is male and he will always be male. Well, your child is male.
How can you say that? You haven't met her. You don't know this. Have you ever encountered anyone that is transgender and gone through that journey with them?
The point is that we're considering what the biological sex of your child is. And by going through this process, he has made himself sterile.
Well,
he could be suffering from all kinds of side effects. And do you know the massive amount of detransitioners that are now coming out saying they should have been given more therapy. They should never have been allowed to go through this process.
Okay, let Lillian answer that, Dawn.
Biggest abuse of children.
Well, let's not be unkind here, Lillian.
I'm sorry. It's not abuse of children because it was not my decision. It was completely her decision, so you cannot say that at all. It was her decision. And can I say, yes, she is autistic, because I know that Maya made the comment that a lot of autistic children go through this because they don't know their path in life. She is autistic. We had her seen by a psychiatrist when she was 10. The psychiatrist said to us, when she was 10, do not worry if you see that there could be, she could want to be a girl, that there are issues there, that she will be a girl. And that is her path, and that's what she's done.
Dawn,
and you saw that at 10.
Dawn, what's the problem here for you? Because surely if Lillian has a daughter and if her daughter identifies as female, no one needs to barge in and say she's a he.
Yes, they do. And Maya said all the reasons why he is a he, because of all of the female single-sex spaces. And I want to go back to that man also who called himself Anna.
She goes to a toilet. She goes to the toilet. She goes to a female toilet.
Let Dawn speak, yeah.
The word lesbian is taken. The word lesbian is for those of us who are same-sex attracted, women who are attracted to other women. That does not include men.
Right, but Lillian has clearly said that her daughter is female. Her child is female, so...
Her child can never be female. She can call him whatever she likes. He can decide whatever he likes in terms of what he wears and what he does. But he should never be able to go into a women's changing room, a women's refuge, anywhere that is a single-sex, female-only space. It is basic. We all know what the definition of women is. It is not complicated. It is not difficult. The vast majority of the public in this country agree with me, agree with Maya.
What you're choosing to ignore here is the differentiation of what is a woman and what is sex. There's sex and there's gender. You can be a female gender, which is what my daughter is. She is a female, but she doesn't have the sexual organs. I will agree with you there. She doesn't have the sexual organs of a female, which absolutely kills her, the fact that she will never be able to give birth to a child.
Thank you both very much. Lillian, whose daughter is transgender, and Dawn Susan from the Western Isles. Charles Jackson in Newcastle upon Tyne says the idea that men can have unfettered access to these groups by simply self-identifying as trans female is frankly ludicrous and wholly indefensible. Let's see, there's just a lot going on here on the lines. Amy in Berkshire says your guest is talking about keeping women safe, which on the face of it sounds like sense, but trans people are statistically much less safe than cis women, as in women who were born female. Mel texts and says, I don't think people should be altering their bodies. We should be altering their mindset. Let's leave it there. BBC Radio 2.